Welcome to Lip Service for Contractors. Here you'll learn what moves the needle in your business. With your hosts, Brigham, the deep thinker, Josh, the $100 million contractor, Zach, the confused millennial, Laura, the foreigner. Lip service. It's not about dictatorship. It's about leadership. It's not about duplication. It's about innovation. It's not about stuff. It's about your people. Strap in and get ready for some lip service.
And we are back with another episode of Lip Service for Contractors, you guys. We've got a phenomenal episode for you today. It is the concept of small jack. Do not catch yourself being a small jack. Now, I know the back here going, oh my gosh, what do you mean by small jack? I am glad you asked. All of that and much, much more in 60 seconds.
Power Selling Pros is the customer service coaching company for contractors. Their one-on-one coaching for CSRs helps contractors book at least 85% of their calls and wow more customers. And their group training for technicians helps you create a better buying experience in the home and close more sales. Visit powersellingpros.com to learn more about how you can make more money with their coaching programs.
Chances are you love what you're hearing on Lip Service for Contractors. And if you want to go deeper, have an actionable playbook, or just want to learn from some of the most successful and profitable contractors in the industry, check out Clover Marketing from Josh and Laura. They give away free, amazing information, tools, SOPs, scripts, and processes that help their family business grow to over 140 million. And those same tools have helped other contractors in the industry blow up their business and grow an average of 20% every single year. Check out growwithclover.com/free gifts. They update the free gifts section all the time, so make sure you keep coming back. Welcome back, Lip Service for Contractors, you guys. What the heck is a small jack? Now, listen, I can have Josh jump in and talk about it, or I can just kind of give you the high-level version. Which would you prefer, Josh?
You
or Zach, either one of you. Okay, so small jack. Small jack is a combination of two things. Okay, jacks of all trades, things we got to avoid. And what's the other one, you guys? Micromanagement. I gave him like 1 second.
You forgot what his
respond.
own weird, just like metaphor description is.
Small jacks, you got to watch out for them, right? So it's two concepts, two things that we have a tendency to fall into. We micromanage. We have a tendency to micromanage, and we have a tendency to be a jack of all trades, neither one of which is going to help you grow your business. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What's your take, guys?
I think we should break this in pieces because I think it makes more sense. Let's start with the jack of all trades. Because I think like a lot of contractors don't understand this or just don't live it when you're interviewing someone, right? Now, I'm going to say this with a caveat. Depends on your size, but the more larger you get, the more important this is to do. It's avoid the jacks of all trades. When we start a business and like it's a small, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, wherever you're doing, right? And you got 6 employees and you got, 2 office staff. That office staff is your manager. They're your dispatcher. They're your accounts receivable. And they're wearing so many hats, right? And that's a good thing because you have to, not because it's actually a good thing. It's what's within your capabilities, right? But then the moment you start adding people and you start having success, so many people still value that, hey, this person can do everything, right? And that's actually never a good thing because I've never met anyone who was amazing at absolutely everything, right? Like even on this podcast, we all have skills that we're great at, skills that we aren't. Organization, not my biggest skill. Like systemizing, organizing from the back end, for sure. Running my own schedule, no, I got to have other people do that. Like being responsive, I'm not the greatest at being responsive. Like we all have things that we are successful at and we fail at. But like, would I rather have someone who answers the phones, does the social media posts, does the emails, does the dispatch, or hey, a really badass CSR that only answers the phone and calls out when we're slow and fills the board, and that's their only real priority. Marketing person that their only job is to make sure the phones are ringing, right? And a dispatch person making sure we're maximizing the value of every single call, right? Yeah. I would rather have 3 specialists than 2 jack of all trades. Does that make sense?
Total. So I guess it's finishing that sentence, right? Jack of all trades is a master of
none.
None. Exactly. What's that, Zach?
I said one, but
so yeah,
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was talking to a contractor last week about his team, and he's got this kind of jack of all trades thing going on because he's been growing. He's like 4 years in business, if I remember correctly, and he needs a full-time dispatcher now. He needs somebody who can be the dispatcher.
Mm-hmm.
And the current dispatcher is also the service manager. So they're doing both dispatching and, helping, working with all the technicians, doing that part of the business. The thing that holds him back, though, from making this guy and all his other employees specialize is he says they'll have to take pay cuts to do it, and no one's going to want to do it because the only way for them to make any money is to do multiple jobs.
I don't understand the question. Like, how's that? So why would he have to take a pay cut?
What would you say to him? What would you say? Because they're only going to do one job now, not multiple jobs. If they're only going to be the service manager, then he's not going to pay them as much because they're not doing dispatch anymore. Or if they're only going to dispatch, then he's not going to pay them to do service manager work either. That was his logic.
I mean, but he's not. I just don't believe he could be a dispatcher and a service manager. Like, he's not really a service manager. He's not really a dispatcher, right? So, like, to be clear, if I have a person who's dispatching and service manager and a true service manager, which one's worth more? The service manager, right? Nothing against the dispatcher. I'm not downplaying it, right? But there's more dispatchers in the business than a service manager. It's a key position, right? Is he doing ride-alongs if he's dispatching? Probably not, right? Is he building an accessory program if he's dispatching? Probably not. Is he, focusing on a sales process and simplifying and teaching the guys and doing the support that he should be doing if he's also dispatching? No, he's not, right? So, like, why take money away from someone? He's about to make you more money, right? And like, this is a common argument too. Like, you're a $5 million business, you want to grow to 10. Don't hire a service manager that can run a $5 million business. You have to set the stage, set the table for where you want to be, not for where you're at now, right? So, like, yeah, I get it. Your P&L might take a hit when you add a team member, but your capabilities change too.
Your potential to earn more.
Correct.
Just as well.
Yeah. So like,
don't
that's
hire
a short-sighted
right
mindset.
now.
By the way, if that's really a conversation, what probably is the problem is, hey, I don't have my pricing structure set up right or my cost structure set up right, because if I had the right margins in place, this wouldn't be a conversation.
Very good point. All right. So what if we were to talk about some of the jobs that, say, for example, a CSR has? If what we've seen, right? What we've seen is a CSR is answering phone calls, and when they're not, the boss has got them doing, I don't know, collection calls. What's the difference in mindset between a collection call and a inbound service experience?
I don't even think you have to go into mindset. Like, if you close your eyes and you describe the type of person that does collection call, right? And then you close your eyes and you think about the type of person who answers the phone and creates an amazing customer experience and then cross sells at the end of the call, what you would most people call a CSR, CCR, right? And then maybe telemarkets when you're slow. Are these the same type of person?
Absolutely not.
No, we all know that, right? Now, when you have one person in the office, you don't have a choice. I get that.
Yeah.
But when you start growing, you do, and you should, right? I would never want that CSR. That CSR's job is to be on the phone and to generate business and create amazing experience. That's the job, right?
Right. And if the calls aren't coming in,
the phones are ringing in, they're answering. If the phones are ringing in, they're calling, right? It's pretty simple, right?
That's right.
And by the way, as you get bigger, if you get real large, you don't even have that person call out. You have people who specialize in just calling out, because that's a slightly different person too. But it's a lot closer than that person that does, collection calls. Or you've all seen this, like, hey, this is my office manager. She answers the phone. She dispatches. She also does our QuickBooks and our accounting. She does accounts receivable. She does accounts payable. She does the payroll as well. It's like, this is not the same kind of person, right? Like,
Those are the hardest conversations to have with our prospective clients, because we're talking about training. And when they list all those things, I'm going, so she runs a business, but you think you do. And when is she going to have time for training?
Right. So
tough.
Do we dissolve the jacks proactively, or reactively? In other words, do you wait until you have to dissolve the jacks, or do you actually proactively? It sounds like either way, you're going to take the hit. Either way,
you take the hit either way.
So you might as well proactively hire for the future and take the hit proactively as opposed to reactively.
Well, so like here's the flaw too, right? Like if we're really being honest, that jack of all trades, not great at any of those. They could be good, but they're not superb, right? So you're losing opportunity, right? But beyond that, like, is that jack of all trades harder yet or really bad CSR? Like it's actually easier to make or to hire a really bad CSR because they're focused. Like it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert or something, right? Like if you're doing 8 different things, you're never going to get to that 10,000 hours. If you're answering the phones all day, every day, your improvement, it goes so much faster. So it's not even about taking a hit or being proactive or reactive. It's like you're losing money now. You're losing opportunity now. Like these people are easier to find. Go find them. Like, why would you wait? If you have the volume to justify, or if you're close to having the volume to justify, get them and you will get the volume. Like we talked about this before, like, you know, one of the easiest ways to grow is, and it's counterintuitive, is hire more people because then you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. I have to get the calls or they sit at home and I lose money.
So let me tell you another multiple job situation that we've seen in the past. And just keep in mind that we talk to dealers. We all do, right? We all talk to dealers every day. So we see so many situations. One recently came up when there was an older technician who does go out on some jobs. He's very, very good, but his knees are old and they don't work what they used to. So part of his time is spent dispatching other technicians. And so he's got 2 different jobs, technician and dispatcher. Let's discuss that for a second.
I mean, you know, being in the field, especially as an installer, but in the field in general, plumbing, I mean, all of it, right? Like it's a young man's game. But really being honest, like you don't see many installers that are 50 plus. It's just not, it's tough on your body. It's not very realistic. Technicians less, plumbers, and, you know, slightly less, but it's a rough thing to do for 50 years. It's just not realistic.
But it's the same situation, Josh. They don't want to take the pay cut. So they don't want to become a full-time dispatcher. They still want to go out on jobs to maintain their income. So how do we help them navigate through that?
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. Like here's the honest answer. Like you're either a dispatcher or a technician. If you're physically unable to be a technician, I don't know what to tell you. You better be a dispatcher.
Yeah, we can't pay you.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. Like there's just no way around it, right? Like this is the only model that works. And if you're set up right and they're on pay performance, like you either, maybe that guy needs to be, maybe if he's really badass, maybe he needs to be a comfort consultant, or if he's in plumbing, he needs to be a drain specialist, something that's a little bit easier on your body. And that's an opportunity where you're really giving them growth. Maybe he needs to be a supervisor or manager if he's a really badass guy. I don't know this guy, right? But technician and dispatcher, you can't wear those 2 hats well. It's just not realistic. These are very different positions, different jobs. You can't transition back and forth. Like imagine like Brigham, we were doing this podcast and like every 15 minutes we stopped to answer emails and then went back to it. Like that back and forth would make us shitty at both.
It's totally true. Is there a path for a phenomenal dispatcher to make $100,000 a year?
Yes.
And so the only reason why he is out in the field is because in his mind, he believes he has to be in order to get the paycheck he wants. However, if we can specialize, and we've talked about the responsibilities of a phenomenal dispatcher, right? They've got to be great at Tetris. In other words, they've got to be able to fill the box as much as possible throughout the day and keep their technicians busy. You've got to be great with the technicians, right? They've got to be willing to take a bullet for you. Right? Why is that important? Because at the end of the day, it's 6 o'clock. They had a fishing trip planned and something comes up and you're going to ask them for favors. Now, obviously there's got to be give and take. There's got to be times where you're helping them out and giving them breaks. But at the same time, you're putting all those emotional deposits in their bank account because there are going to be times where there's going to be a withdrawal. There's going to be, hey, we need you now. I know it's not what you planned, but we need you now. And thirdly, they got to be great with people in general, being able to talk with people, explain where they're at, where the technician's going to be. And this takes a ton of people skills, a ton of practice, a ton of training, the people side, because it's not as simple as, oh, hey, we're going to be 15 minutes late. Okay. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay. Because you're going to irk me if you're going to be 15 minutes late. And the technician comes out and guess what? I'm already irked and he wants to upsell something. He wants to throw in a UV light and an electrostatic filter. I'm not interested. Okay. I would have been interested 15 minutes ago. So all these things we've got to train them on. That's just why they've got a specialist. This is why I'm asking. There's got to be a way to create a path for people to make as much money as they want to make.
100%. But here's what I would say. Like, the most important job of a dispatcher is not to fill the board. That's a big piece of it, but it's to maximize revenue, which means sometimes I call customers and reschedule them, which irks people for sure. And you got to make it right and make it work. Right. But to make $100,000 as a dispatcher, is that very realistic? It is very realistic. But let's be honest, not every company's set up to really take care of their dispatchers. They don't have bonus structures. They don't focus on maximizing the value. So that's not a profit generating position, right? It should be. Good companies do that, but not everyone does. So like, it's awfully, I get the point, and we're just using this random technician I don't even know as an example, right? But like, he might not be able to make $100,000 at his current company being a dispatcher. And maybe he can't be at that level, and it is what it is. But then he's a technician, and if his body can't handle that, like, it's like if I want to play professional football, but I'm too slow, I can't. Like, it is what it is.
That's a great example. Well, I think the mention of comfort consultant, comfort advisor, dude, that's a great idea.
Well, he's got to be great at communicating with the customer.
Sure. Right? It's going to take some training.
Then this is an opportunity for him.
It's going to take some training, but you could absolutely do 150, 175. No, you could probably
250,
even make more.
300, 400.
Right. You could even make more money as a comfort advisor.
There's comfort advisors that make 7 figures.
I love it.
Regularly.
I love it. It's a great idea. Now, side note, you're right. It's not just about Tetris. It's not just filling the box. You absolutely want to book for profits. But you also, if you're going to do that, you also want to make sure that the people that you're putting aside or putting off in a nice way, that you're handling it the right way. Right. Yeah. And again, that takes
you have to make it right. There's no doubt about that.
It's pretty simple. You get a customer on the phone. You say, look, we had you on the schedule between 6 and 8. Right. We have a family that is in absolute need, where the technician's at right now. As soon as they're done with that, we're going to call you and let you know what's going on. What are we doing? We're explaining there's a bit of a situation. We know that their situation is dire. We have another situation where there's a family in need. And again, our goal is not to say customer, because everybody's a customer. Everybody's a customer. Everybody wants to feel like a customer. So when you use words like family, that's an emergency. There's a huge emergency here. Now, the last thing you want to do is put off one emergency for another. You got to be wise in what you say and how you say it. You got to listen to the tone and the intent of the customer. And it just takes time to do it right. But a phenomenal dispatcher like that should be able to make as much money as they want to make.
Yeah. Going back to the jack of all trades, what position is most guilty of this in the home service business? It's the owner. I want to be the sales manager, the service manager. I want to be the call center manager. And you could do that when there's 4 of you, right? When there's 15 of you, 25, 40 of you, you better hire some help, right? Mm-hmm. And if they don't, because they're like, but I can make that money. I'm like, yeah, but you can make a lot more money. You're thinking too small, right? Money is infinite, right? There's always more to grab. Always. It's not like if you're doing $5 million now, you couldn't be doing 6 with some help, right? Or 10 or 25, right? I think the person that's most guilty of this is the business owner, and it trickles down from there.
It's true.
Good point.
It is a powerful thing giving responsibility to somebody else and also being able to trust that person to do that job.
Which brings us to our next topic.
That's right. I'm glad that you said that. So, and that brings us to micromanagement. Okay. If you give somebody a job, you give them a responsibility. And then you find yourself hanging around them, pointing at all of their mistakes, not letting them fail ever, right? And then they get a little cautious about everything they do. And then next thing you know, you get poor performance. You wonder why there's poor performance. Well, it's because people feel like they're in a very small box and they can't work in that small box because somebody's constantly looking over their shoulders. It's not fun. I always try to avoid getting into generations because nobody likes to be micromanaged. But I think especially millennials and Gen Zs do not like to be micromanaged. What do you guys have thoughts? Micromanagement.
I'm going to give a complicated answer to a really simple question, I think. I'm not a fan of micromanaging. Obviously, none of us are. I don't think anyone in the world is. In fact, some people do it because they feel they need to. But I really think it depends on the person and depends on the quality of the manager and the position. Some people need to be micromanaged. And if they need to be micromanaged long-term, they need to be pushed out. But some people need to be micromanaged short-term. And that can be okay sometimes.
Sure. Are you referring to like training? Hey, here's an SOP. Here's how it works. Let me see how you do it and observe.
That can be. But if they continually mess up, like stepping into that is okay too.
Yeah.
I think my favorite analogy I've ever heard for this was, first of all, Dan Pink wrote his book, right? Drive. Every person to feel fulfilled in their career needs clarity on why the job's important, competence to be able to do the job well, and control over their work, right? Not to be micromanaged. And the best analogy is the way that we give driver's licenses to people. When you turn 16, you don't just get a driver's license. You have to go to the class. You have to learn. You have to take a written test. You have to go on several drives with an instructor and demonstrate your ability to them. You're essentially being micromanaged in the car several times before you pass all the tests, you do the actual drives with the instructor, and then you receive your license. You don't just give the license to the 16-year-old because they're 16 now. I thought that was a really great way to put it in terms of training employees, right? We train them, we teach them, we observe them, we micromanage them the same way a driving instructor micromanages a new driver to the point that they're competent. And once they feel competent, they understand how to do the job, then we have regular check-ins, obviously, with them where we make sure they continue to perform at a high level.
Using that same analogy, and we don't do this as a country, obviously, right? But like countries do. What happens if you get in 2 wrecks in within a month of each other?
That's right.
Go back to that as a business. Should we go back to that? It depends on why they got in a wreck, right?
Yeah, there's so much case.
It's because they're not using their turn signals, right? Like we're gonna micromanage turn signals for a while. You know what I mean? Like that's
a great analogy.
What people like to hear, but
I love it. Let me build on that with a personal experience real quick. So my son, Isaac, 15 and a half, which means he just got his driver's permit.
Terrifying.
Well, what's even more terrifying is I really didn't think this through. I know you guys are going to be surprised by this, but before he got his permit, about a month before, I decided, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my older car and trade it in for a new one. And I ended up getting a Volvo, right? I've always wanted a Volvo. Love this Volvo. It's awesome. And of course, a month later, Isaac gets his driver's license. I mean, his driver's permit. And my wife, Alicia, says, he's not driving my car. And I'm going, dude, my car's a month old. What are you talking about? He's not driving my car. And then, of course, he's looking at us both going, come on, you guys. I've waited 15 freaking years to drive a car. I got to drive one of you. So finally, he gets in the Volvo, and you guys, I am freaking out. I'm freaking out the whole time. I'm like, slow. It's like 25 miles an hour, and he's going 15 because I am freaking out. There's a couple of times where he had to figure out the spacing between the passenger side. These parked cars, these stationary vehicles. He's coming up on these stationary vehicles, and I feel like we're going to scrape up against every one of them. Like, give me some space. He's like, well, I'm trying to make sure I have enough space. And I was like, yeah, but you don't need freaking 3 feet on your side. Please just move over just a little. And it's those types of conversations. So 4 months later, dude, we're good. I sit there. I don't freak out. I can breathe. It's an amazing thing. But yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And that is a perfect example, Zach. So when we start taking the training wheels off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we want to have checks and balances in place to make sure they continue to,
for sure,
continue to perform the way that they should.
For sure.
But other than that, it's important for us to create some space. So space for them to succeed, as well as space for them to fail. I think there's a lot of power in giving them space to fail. Look, when we started our own business and we were doing everything, we failed a bunch. Problem, nobody was there to look over our shoulder and say, hey, that was a mistake and here's what you need to do better next time. Or what do you think what do you think would be best in the future, right? Nobody was really there to hold us accountable. So we were like, it's fine, it's my business, who cares, right? And you're right, it is your business and now you've got other people running it. So you want to be very careful about the way you handle failure as well as success for your team.
I forget the exact quote. And I love it, so I should know it, but it's something to the effect of, without room for failure, there's no room for innovation, right? Like you have to be able to fail and it not being a big deal for you to be able to come up with new ideas, because new ideas are more likely to fail. I mean, like that's kind of part of the deal.
Yeah. I got a great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry. I thought you were gonna. Go
ahead.
Okay. I got a cool story on this actually. There's a guy, he's named Lieutenant David Marquet. And he was a submarine captain in the US Navy. And submarines historically rely on micromanagement. Nobody does anything unless the captain of the submarine tells them to do it. Period. Nobody does anything. So Captain Marquet spent 1 or 2 years, I believe, studying this submarine that he was going to be the captain of. He'd been prepared for it. He'd been selected for it and was ready to go. He knew everything about the submarine so that he could go and tell everyone what to do. He could be the director. But then at the last minute, they switched him to another submarine that he knew nothing about. He didn't understand the internal controls whatsoever, and yet he was supposed to be the captain. So he gets in there completely clueless. And of course, the crew won't do anything without his instruction at all. And so he realized in very short order that if we didn't figure out a system here, that we're all going to die out here because they're waiting for me to give them orders, and I don't know anything about the ship, so I can't give them orders. So he implemented this, he calls it intent-based leadership, where he basically told them that they are free to make decisions, that they don't need to ask him for permission, except they need to say, Captain, I intend to do whatever thing they want to do, right? I intend to do it. Brigham, you may notice when I ask you to do stuff at BSP, I always start with, hey, I intend to do this. Are you okay with it? Because when people say, I intend to, he asks them 2 questions in return. Is it the right thing to do? Meaning, is it going to get us closer to our goal, our purpose? And is it safe? Meaning, if we mess it up, are we going to die, essentially, on the submarine? And he uses this to teach business people how to give their employees autonomy and not micromanage them. Get them to say, I intend to do something. Get them to act with intent and not have to be constantly told what to do. The only 2 things that you need to ask them when they want to make a decision is it the right thing to do? Does it align with our goals as a company right now, or is it distracting us? And number 2, if we mess it up, is it going to hurt the company? Like, are we going to lose $1 million?
What's the consequences?
Yeah.
Potential consequences.
Yeah. How severe are those consequences? And if they're not so severe that a mistake by this particular person will blow up the company, then give them the freedom to go and take action. If they fail, it's a beautiful model. I absolutely love it. Like I've just been studying it because I now have 1 salesperson under me and 1 marketer under me. And I don't have experience as a manager. Like I'm not like,
you do now.
I do now. But so I've been studying, how do I teach what I know, be open to new things from them, and bring out the best in them without them feeling like, oh, I have to wait for Zach to tell me what to do. Because oftentimes I don't know, right?
Yeah. I think the key for micromanaging, the reason most people micromanage, there's really 2 reasons. It's either they don't know what's happening or they don't trust that it will happen without them getting involved. Those are really the only 2 reasons that I could think of anyway. I'm coming up with it on the spot. Maybe there's another reason, but and the thing is, both of those things are super easily tackleable. Most people micromanage is because they're poor communication. They don't have a communication system that's not consistent and solid. It's not predictable. And because of that, they feel out of the loop in their own business or their own department. So they feel the need to get involved. But what they really need is to improve their style of communication, either from their end or someone else's, which can be super easily done. The other side of it is when they feel like things won't happen without them getting involved. So it's not a lack of a communication. They may understand what's going on, but they feel they need to step in because they don't trust, right? And most of the time, the reason they don't trust is because they don't have a system of verification, right? Trust but verify, right? And then it becomes real easy. So like what I do, and it's super simple, is everybody has KPIs, they have goals, they know exactly what they're supposed to do in their position and what success looks like. And like we have consistent reporting, some of it daily, some of it weekly, some of it monthly. And if, my social media manager has a report that comes to me once a week, if numbers are high or low, right, it has to come with a video with an explanation of what she thinks happened, why she thinks it that way, and what she's going to do differently. Or if it's really great, how we're going to repeat it.
I love it.
Now I have verification and clarification, right? Because I have the reporting and I'm forcing them to assess instead of me giving the answers.
So in that, while we're on that topic, let's say that an employee approaches their job with the best of intentions, right? They've checked all the boxes, they perform, they go for it in their intended plan of action. A problem arises. Now, department heads have a tendency to lay that situation in the owner's lap. What should the owner do now?
Well, we got a brand new manager. You want to try a stab at that first, Zach?
I actually kind of do. I kind of want to see what you guys' thoughts on my answer are. Okay. So you're basically saying if something goes wrong in a department
and they lay it on your lap, hey, I got a situation.
Pass the buck to you.
Okay.
Yep, it's in your lap now. There's two things that people do. Let's see.
So what should you do as the owner?
Or manager?
Yeah. Any leader.
Okay.
Any leadership role.
My initial reaction is do some discovery, right? Like make sure you understand the full context of the situation so that you can understand. That's my first reaction is like, okay, so what happened? Who?
Right.
Why? How? Like let them know the full thought process. And I don't want your manufacturer answer. Don't blame someone. I hate when people blame, right? Just tell me the straight facts. Who said what led to the decision? Okay, now that we know the facts, it's like when my kids are yelling at me and they're like, Dad, Blakely's being mean to me. Dad, Easton's being mean to me. All I care about is somebody please just tell me exactly what happened. Right? I just want to know the play-by-play facts. And then from there, my instinct is to say, help them address it, but then set the expectation that next time, teach them how to resolve it without you. That would be my...
Yeah. And
that works when you have two people, Zach.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I got a follow-up question, but Josh, did you want to interject there real quick?
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to follow, I'll let you go with the follow-up question for Zach and I'll answer fully afterwards.
Okay. So if you solve this problem, the next time they have a problem, where do you think they're going to go?
Well, they're going to go back to you, which is why I ended with teach them how to do it next time. My next answer plan B would be let them figure it out on their own. I don't know.
Right. And of course there's gotta be the way that we do that. Cause the last thing we want is for them to handle it in a way that's not productive. I mean, just ask my brother and I growing up, right? Completely different situation back then. It was always, oh, Brigham would just beat me up, which is so not true, you guys. But that's exactly what is it. Josh is like, I don't know, Brigham. Well, I've grown up a little bit since then. But you get my point. Now, if they come to you with a problem and you respond with, okay, so let me make sure I fully understand the situation. What you're saying is that this is what's going down. Is that right? Yes. Okay. That's not good. Sound familiar? That's not a good situation. No, it's not good at all. Well, look, what do you think is the best way to handle this? I mean, I know that you can handle it. I know that you also came prepared with some sort of idea, some sort of solution with this. And at that point, they're either going to say, oh, no, I didn't. And then you help them come up with a solution that they're going to attack, right? They're going to resolve. Or they're going to say, oh, yeah, here's my idea. I'm going to give you a specific example of this. Okay. Lindsay is phenomenal at this, Lindsay Markham. So yesterday, this happened just yesterday. we've been working on ways to increase customer retention, something we're constantly focused in on. We get better and better every year. It's awesome where we're at now, but it's never good enough for us. And we have really been thinking outside the box, all kinds of different ways to coach, so on and so forth, to even lower our attrition when it comes to coaching our customers or CSRs. And she came up with probing answers. So instead of us going in at the beginning of a phone call saying, so we're going to talk about positivity today. Dude, somebody said, we're going to talk. Imagine, Josh, somebody calling you and saying, hey, we're going to talk about positivity today. And you're going to be like, yeah, I don't have time for that. Right?
It's not going to be a good call.
It's not going to be very positive. So instead, creating probing questions, and probing questions can come from all different types, right? And what do I mean by that? Let's say that you were to say, hey, tell me about your worst day at work. Can you remember your worst day? Oh my gosh, here was my worst day. And then they go on and they explain their worst day. And then you approach it with, okay, what can we do proactively to make it a better day than how it started? And we roll with that. Never once did I have to use the word positivity. Brilliant idea. Great way to get people engaged and create wow experiences on every coaching call. And we're putting it at the beginning of every one of our lessons. I think it's going to be phenomenal and take our coaching program to a whole new level. Yeah. And that's just an example.
Now, I think there's lots of multiple ways to lead, and I don't think everybody has the same skill set. So I'm hesitant, much like with anything else, really. There's not one size fits all solution, but there are tendencies, right? Zach, you're new to management, but like you cannot answer the first time. Trust me. Like it will just cause more problems for you. Brigham does kind of a, help you out, but like, hey, what have we done? I straight up don't answer. Like, hey, we're having this problem. I'm going to say, perfect. What are we doing to fix it? What have we tested? Who have you met with and how often? If you need me to get involved because you guys can't come up with a solution, I'm more than happy to do that. But you better go meet with someone else first. Okay. I'm not your first line of defense.
Love it.
Because that's scalable.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is you start asking that question next time, don't come to me. They're still coming to you. Like they just will. Or like the worst. And I remember when I was, new to the industry and new to business in general, like, I worked with my father and, I knew he knew the answer off the top of his head. And it'd take me a full day to get that answer. He wasn't going to give it to me anyway. It's like, you go figure it out. Like, it's not my problem. You have the potential of figuring this answer out. It's like, shit. But you know what? I do that to people now. And I think he did a great service by doing that. And I see people even he didn't do that with. And like, you can see the difference in the how they think and the quality of their lives and everything. It's better not to answer a lot of times, right? Your job cannot be the stopgap for success or failure if you're more than a few people. It's just not realistic. Like you will outstretch your bandwidth no matter how badass you are. There is a point, and it's not that far in the future, right? So if you don't teach them to do it without you, instantaneously, you set a bad culture and a bad habit.
That makes a lot of sense as an owner. What if you used to be working in like the call center, right? You used to be the manager of the call center. Now you've moved over to you're specialized. You're not jack of all trades. You're specialized now in a different part of the business. Someone from the call center comes and asks you for help. Do you just like, not me?
Talk to your call center manager, right?
Okay.
It's the same situation.
Yeah.
It's the exact same situation. If that call center manager needs help, right? Then you're going to say, awesome. What have you tested? What have we tried? What do you think is going to work? Who have you met with and how often? Right? I'm not your first solution. It's the exact same situation. So like, here's how extreme I do this. And I believe it's the right way to do it. Maybe not everyone agrees, but I will purposely let people fail with bad ideas. I'm like, I know in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know that's not going to work. But you know what? There's not that much pain to this. It's not going to take that much time. It's not going to take that much money. And it's a very valuable lesson. And I'm giving support to my team members, right? Like, hey, I will allow you to test things outside the box, even if I don't believe in them. Because every once in a while, things I know don't work, kind of work. Right? It's like, well, shit, maybe I need to dig into this more.
Yeah.
There's a piece of it that you can
Right.
With.
Right. But like a good example of this is like, Laura insisted, like, let's do a direct mail piece to business owners for contractor capital. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. In the back of my head, I didn't say it out loud, but I'm like, that's fucking never going to work. Like under no circumstance. Like we could get crazy and we could send like an iPad with a preloaded video and like maybe I could justify that. But where she wanted to do a postcard, like business owners aren't opening a postcard from Clover Marketing unless they already know us and doing business with us, right? But I was like, you know what? It's $2,000. If we get, 2 people, it's probably a good deal. I don't even think we'll get 2 people, right? I was right. But I'm glad I let her do it because okay, she feels comfortable. Direct mail is not a real solution. Let's move on to something else.
I love that. Otherwise, it's lingering in the back of her mind.
Yeah.
Good for you. Hey,
I like how I threw Laura on the bus when she's not here.
Look, she doesn't. We don't need to say, hey, look, Laura knows she's awesome. She's brilliant. She's smarter than the rest of us. That's fair. And it's okay, right? We all make mistakes. And it's cool that you gave her the freedom to fail. It's awesome.
I don't think it's a mistake though. I think it's a test, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Fine. Yeah,
exactly. So it's not failure at all.
Some things that never worked before will all of a sudden start working because something's changed.
So do not catch yourself being a small jack, which is exactly what we've been talking about this entire time. Zach,
he just likes saying small jack. That's
small jack, man. It's perfect.
It like you before we started hitting record, by the way, just so everybody's on the same page, he did like 5 iterations of like micro and micromanaging jack of all trades. It started with like micro jack. And then it was like, I don't know. It's like 5th one. And he's like, small jack. That's the one. It makes perfect sense. I'm like, it works. Let's just go.
Yeah.
Zach, you want to summarize for us?
That was great. That was a great conversation. I love that. I know I learned a lot about, number one, specialization. I think the biggest question mark walking away from this episode still is, I think most people I think agree with the concept of specialization. I think they understand on an intellectual level, like I need my people to specialize. From my experience and from talking to contractors, though, I think that the thing that holds them back from doing it is the fear that it's going to cost too much, getting past that unknown, right? Because you don't exactly know what's going to happen next. You're just kind of going off
How's that different than anything else in the business?
Well, it's not, right? I'm not saying it's rational. I'm not saying it's a logical fear. I'm just saying it is. Like people are afraid because that means I have to dish out more money. I have to pay. I have to now have somebody I relied on for literally everything only be relied on for one thing. And what if the new people aren't as good as them? There's lots of fear that goes around there. And so I think people may still wonder, am I at the point now where I should specialize? And that might be a good final question, Josh, is when does a contractor know, okay, it's time for this person to specialize and no longer do multiple jobs?
The moment you can. The literal moment you can. So what I mean by that is if you're, and I'm not messing with anybody, but you're chucking a truck, you're working out of your house, you got 2 plumbers working for you, you are the office staff.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. It's not realistic for you. You hire one manager, like one internal person, right? All those hats you're wearing less hats. They're wearing a bunch of hats still, right? These are not specialized at this point. The moment beyond that, your 3rd employee not in the field, you start to specialize more. That's all it is. Like, and these hats, like in the beginning, you're wearing 15 hats. Now there's 2 of you, you're wearing 8, they're wearing 7, or you're wearing 10, they're wearing 5. But each time you hire someone, they wear less hats until someone has just 1 hat, right? Like you might hire a CSR and dispatcher, right? And that's more specialized than a CSR, dispatcher, accountant, accounts receivable, payables person, right? So you do as soon and as fast as you can, and you just get more and more specialized as you go.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
That's a good answer. As soon as you can.
And don't let your fears control you or your business.
I mean, it's no different than running a marketing campaign or hiring a new technician or there's unknowns.
Yeah.
And
you take risks.
Hiring a really badass CSR is not a cost. It's only a cost if you allow it to be a cost. I don't have to spend less money on marketing because I convert higher and they sell over the phone.
That's right.
How is this not good? An accountant person, right? Having clean reporting and books. Do you know how much money that's worth? Like, really, if we're really being honest, like how much better your decision-making process is, how much cleaner and faster you can make decisions. Like, that's worth a lot of money and generates a lot more than that person costs. Right? Or even just selling them on cost savings. Like, how many contractors don't look at their P&L and are paying for that software from 2 years ago that they still don't use? It's like, shit, you just spent a lot of money for nothing. Like, probably could have hired an accountant for that.
By the way, shameless pitch here. Your CSR is not a cost is the subject of my Linux Live breakout next month. If you're going on
Love live, it.
Fancy.
Stop by. Your CSR is not a cost. It's a profit center.
Yeah.
Good podcast to you guys. Josh, what should we do next?
I would say we'd just go out and let's just go change the world.
Well said.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Make sure, by the way, make sure to follow us. Make sure to like us, subscribe, social stalk us, give us calls, stop by our doors, hang outside in the bushes, whatever you want to do, but make sure you're hanging out with us.
That's right. Share with your friends. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Next time.
Thank you for listening to Lip Service for Contractors. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave us a review in the App Store and don't forget to share with your friends. Ideas are cheap. Implementation is what separates the winners from the watchers. Go out and implement these ideas. See you on the next episode of Lip Service for Contractors.